Yay, welcome. Bienvenidos today to El Proyecto Mamá. Welcome to TMP. Woo woo. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining us on this special edition. We're calling our Hora Especial de la Unidad. So our special edition of Unity Hour for our Hispanic Heritage Month. And definitely thank you so much for all our partners. We're very, very fortunate to be kicking this off for our Hispanic ERG. VIVA. And thank you again. Viva, viva. Thank you who all have contributed to the event. Definitely missing my co-leader, Angie Stratman. She's cheering us on in the background. Thank you, Sonia, definitely for your leadership. And we're so excited to welcome Bienvenidos, Ana Valdez. Pass it over to you, Sonia.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. Y mil gracias, Ana. Ana Valdez is a principal at Valdez Productions and Consulting. She's the executive president of the Latino Donor Collaborative and the chair of the board of trustees of Southern California Public Radio. And I know sometimes people cut these introductions short, but I think it's really important to share all of Ana's successes and contributions. So I'm gonna go through the whole introduction and all of your background and success here. Ana is an amazing marketing, media, and political consultant, a thought leader combining 28 years of experience in politics, the corporate world, and media. She was born and raised in Mexico City and has studied and worked also in Spain, Switzerland, and the United States. She currently lives in Los Angeles, California, even though she's currently in some beautiful beach destination down by the Mexico Caribbean. Ana has worked at the United Nations Commission for Human Rights. She was a presidential appointee for the Clinton administration and has collaborated with Nielsen, Citibank, Colgate, Bristol-Myers, Scott Paper, Best Foods, Summit Entertainment, Fox Channel 11, the U.S. Department of Energy, and so many more. She's also been part of the U.S. presidential campaigns, the Dolores Huerta Foundation, and others. She was also Fox 11's on-air political and media analyst and a blogger for myfoxparents.com, Huffington Post, and CNN Online. She and her husband, Jeff Valdez, started Valdez Productions and Consulting, Inc. to create media content, media platforms, and strategies that serve the new multicultural American market. The company has written and produced content for Disney Studios, Nickelodeon, ABC, Showtime, KTLA, Univision, YouTube, and others. In 2003, Valdez Productions launched the American National Cable and Satellite Channel, CTV, now Fuse. And Ana's also a mom to 2 college students. She has a firm mission for making a difference in the lives of underserved communities and has served on 10+ boards pursuing that mission. She joins us today to talk about the power of the Latina purse, el poder de la cartera latina. Thank you so much, Ana. We're so glad to have you. And Ana, yes, of course. We have been moving into a space of diversity, equity, and inclusion and getting to know each other in very vulnerable and real authentic ways. And so my first questions for you are around that. And I did give you a heads up, just so everyone knows who's joining us. I did give Ana a heads up about our really deep questions. So Ana, first and foremost, ¿quién eres? Who are you?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Sonia, Yvonne, and the whole organization. I think this is really needed, and I'm honored to be part of it. So anything I can help to increase your participation of Latinas and other, wonderful multicultural, women. So who am I? That's a really great question. You made me think a lot when I got those questions. So I would describe myself as a proud woman. I feel really, really satisfied on having been born a woman. I'm grateful. I know that it has some challenges, but I also do think we have a lot of gifts. I am also extremely proud to be a mom. In a lot of different ways, being a mom gives me meaning. And even though I am a recent empty nester, I am extremely grateful. I'm extremely happy to see my kids really soon, by the way. And it's still part of me, and it will always be part of me. I am also a professional. I was one of those pioneer women in Mexico. I was born and raised in Mexico. And when I graduated, it was not very common to actually want to work for a corporation or to want to go away. And I just wanted to. And I was lucky enough that my parents, were supportive, and I was able to do that. And so I am also a professional, and I am a professional woman because it's different than being a professional man. I am a professional woman that was willing to pay the price, quite frankly, right? To have it all, maybe not at the same time, everything, but to have it all eventually, to have kids, to have, a family, to be able to, to realize all my potential.
We're going to talk about so much of that today. So thank you for already bringing that into this space and to who you are. Next question. ¿Qué crees que la gente asume sobre usted? What do you think people assume about you?
And thank you. That question is so good because it actually reminded me that I forgot to say something. I'm also an extremely proud Latina. And that's part of my essence and my identity that is always with me. And so I feel like when people, what people get from me without having knowing me, just the first impression, is sometimes a lot of stereotypes. It's sometimes, people that think that Latinos are, and then you say ... what you've heard about Latinos, right? I don't want to even honor, mentioning it, but there are a lot of stereotypes. And I feel compelled every time to show who I really am. And so I feel sometimes that I'm representing even my whole cohort of Latinas, and I am an ambassador in so many ways. And so I work hard on showing that I am a hard worker, that I have work ethic, that I am optimistic, I am family oriented. I work hard to show how we are patriotic. I also work really hard on showing that we don't like hand-me-downs. We like to be known by our work and our results. I also work hard on being trying to be, because at least I don't succeed all the time, but extremely open-minded and welcoming. I want to show how the real numbers tell us that Latinas intermarry 60% of the times, and that Facebook says that we actually, 67% of our friends are not Latinos. And that's not because we don't love our culture, we adore our culture, but we're just very open, and that's what we do. And so I guess I do know what people think I am when they meet me, but I hope that I show them eventually what I'm really about.
So many important things there. I think the one thing I do want to say is thank you. As a Latina, and as a proud Latina woman, I want to thank you for being one of our spokeswomen. I do think it's phenomenal, everything that you're doing. And so, cuéntanos tu historia. Tell us your story of how you got to be here and how you got to this space today.
It's so interesting because I feel that so I was born and raised in Mexico City, and I was lucky to go to school and to have parents that were, involved. But at the same time, I was also very aware of the differences between classes, between colors. I was one of those people that could feel the subtleties, and people would say, I think it's your imagination. Oh, I think you're being sensitive. Oh, I think that's not true. No, he really didn't mean to do that, or she didn't mean to do that. But I did feel it. And there is stereotyping and there is prejudice everywhere, including Mexico, of course, and maybe especially Mexico. And I grew up with that. It was really something that was with me constantly. At the same time, and there's a reason, I don't want to expand too much, but I was darker and I was more indigenous looking, and so I felt it. I always felt that. At the same time, I was actually not kind of, I was a nerd. I was always a nerd. And being a nerd, I was always interested in knowing, about things. And one day when I was, I think 11, I found marketing. And I found it because there was a campaign by the government that was called Ciérrale. And Ciérrale means turn the faucet off. We had a huge drought, and there was, a problem with water available for all Mexicans. And so this campaign, I remember thinking, you know, they enrolled celebrities to say it and everything. And I really saw how it yielded all these results where we actually got out of the problem of scarcity of water as a nation. And I realized that this marketing thing was a way to change the world in so many ways. So when I had to choose what to study, I studied marketing. And then, you know, the rest is history. I mean, I just always try to use all through my career. I graduated and I was lucky enough to be the second woman hired by Nielsen, which is the largest Nielsen company in the world. You can't hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, great. And so I started doing marketing nonstop. The way I left Mexico, I decided to do my master's in Spain. The way I left Spain, I was lucky enough to work for the United Nations, the Commission for Human Rights in Geneva. So I ended up living in Switzerland again. And then the way I came to the United States is that I started a PhD and I wanted to do my thesis in marketing with politics in order to change things. And I was lucky enough, again, my life has been a series of luck to be at the right place at the right time. I was lucky enough to get a volunteer job at the White House with Clinton. The good thing is that they hired me 3 months later because I started as a volunteer, but they hired me 3 months later. The bad thing is I never went back to do my PhD, which eventually I hope that someday I do. But that's how I ended up in the United States. That's how I ended up working for the Clinton administration. And I met my husband. While I was working there, he lived in Los Angeles and he was a producer. So my politics and marketing background, together with his production and media, you know, experience, really matched perfectly everything that I wanted to do. That was together with me discovering the way communities work in the United States. I discovered I belonged to the Latino community in the United States because I didn't know. I came from a country where everybody's Latino. I came here and then I discovered that Latinos were a thing, right? And so since then we got married 22 years ago, and that's what we've been doing. We've been using media and marketing to create a change within the Latino community, for the Latino community, and for America, quite frankly. So that's the story. Sorry, I think I was a little long, but that was my journey.
It is your story. You get to choose how you share it, and you get to tell us your story. So we appreciate all of it, and congratulations on being married 22 years. That's wonderful, and definitely as much of an accomplishment as everything else you've done professionally. So congratulations on that too. You mentioned early on that, you know, even in Mexico and among the Latino community, there are stereotypes and there is judgment. And so can you talk to us a little bit about how you overcame some of those family and societal pressures to get to where you are?
Absolutely. That's such part of my story. I really think about it every day. Even though I don't feel as affected, right? But I was very affected when I was growing up, and there was a big difference. I actually was raised in a family to start with, and then also within the society I was kind of raised. There was a big difference, and I was always the darkest, the more indigenous looking, and if 70% of the people maybe didn't notice or maybe didn't affect them, there was always a part of it that did, right? I mean, within my family, I had people that said really mean things, and I had people that didn't invite me to certain things because it. And again, my mom, who's really, really light, doesn't look Latina at all, was like, oh, it's your imagination. Oh, come on, don't be acomplejada, like all these things about, and I think she meant well, but, she just didn't understand it. And so I was lucky to be a nerd, and maybe I was a nerd because of it. I don't know what came first, but I was a nerd, and I was a straight A student, and I was always trying to do things really well. And if I was not the prettiest, I was really I try to be the smartest, and it kind of worked. Sometimes I feel like it was actually great that I had that situation when I was growing up, because it really pushed me to be, you know, really a hard worker and, you know, results oriented. And I want to change that because I've seen how things can be changed. I've seen the change in perceptions of other communities, and we admire beauty that maybe was not admired 50 years ago. And we need it, and I want to do that for the Latino community, because not only Latinos, but non-Latinos are missing a lot of opportunities because of prejudice and because of stereotyping. So, so that's a little bit of how I lived it and how I overcame it.
I'm confident that you were the prettiest and the smartest all the time. Just having gotten to know you over the last couple of months, I'm confident in saying that. And you've also brought up another point about how, you know, you want to make change. And so that's what the Mom Project is all about. We're trying to make change and make it easier for women to, as you said earlier, have it all, your family and your career. Can you talk to us a little bit about how having children impacted your career or your success or your path at all?
Well, I mean, I do, and I'm going to speak for myself, but I think I can speak for other friends of mine and for people, for women in general. It is extremely hard. I mean, it is a lot of negotiating, a lot of compromising, a lot of organizing. I remember I got pregnant in my honeymoon, so I really actually was not thinking about having kids so fast. I actually wanted kids, always wanted, but I was not sure. And so I moved, when I got married, I moved, changed jobs, got married, moved to another city. So it was one of those really, really crazy changes. And I remember feeling so overwhelmed. And I little by little try to negotiate again and I have a friend of mine who's really, really successful that says women can have it all, but not at the same time. And I think that's a little bit of my mantra on the way I've organized it, right? I mean, at that point when I got married right away, I got pregnant right away, I was like, wow, this was not exactly the way I wanted to organize it. But my husband he was raised in a family of 9, and there were 3 boys, 5 girls, and then him. So he was really raised by 6 women, right? His sisters and his mom. So he's really in tune of that, of how, you know, his sisters worked and everything. And so he was always very, very helpful. I'm sure that I made a lot of mistakes at the beginning, and I'm sure that, you know, I failed. And actually I do know that I failed, you know, in places that I thought I could manage. It got to, so I think basically it was a labor of love. Basically it was a lot about scheduling. But still when I thought I was succeeding, still when I thought my kids were fine, still when I thought my marriage was fine. I remember one day, like 6 years after getting married, waking up one day and feeling like I was really weak. And for like 2 weeks, I couldn't do things. And I felt really disempowered until one day I broke down and I just, you know, not only crying, but I said, I need to quit everything. I think I'm doing nothing right. And it took me a while to accept where I was, accept my failures, accept my need to compromise, accept that I couldn't do everything that I wanted, and to then choose and plan what was more important, what was next, and what I had to let go. To say no, that's one thing that Latinas, and I'm sure, and I have the feeling women in general, have a lot of trouble doing, to say no. And to your question, I think it's really hard because I have told my husband 1,000 times, it's so easy for them. They don't have to have, you know, kids. They don't have to raise them. They don't have to organize the household. They don't have the sixth sense where, you know, your kid is not doing as well as he could and he needs attention. You know, they don't, so we do the work of 2, 3, and 4 people. Now, if you ask me now that my kids left, is it worth it? 100%. 100%. But it's really hard.
I think you are expressing what so many of us feel, Latino, Latina, no matter our ethnicity, our race, our culture, our background. But as moms, I think you're just sharing what a lot of us feel. And thank you so much for being vulnerable about that. And I kind of joke that 19 years into parenting, I'm still doing it all wrong. And I still have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm doing it. And yes, I do it with love. And so that's the best way I know how to do it. And so fingers crossed, it all works out. But it's true, there's no playbook for women, and there's no playbook for women who want to succeed and who want to advance, to have it all at the same time or within succession or however the timing works out. But yes, you're absolutely correct. If we are gracious with ourselves, admit that there's going to be mistakes, and we do it with love, fingers crossed. And you do a lot because of your love of your community, as you've talked about. And the Latino Donor Collaborative is not your full-time job. It is something that you do because you're passionate about the community and helping improve the community and empower women and Latinos. So can you tell us a little bit more about what it is specifically?
Absolutely. And you're right, Sonia. It's when I actually look at my kids and I feel like I failed in something, my consolation, or anything you want to call it, but my reasoning right away is I did the best I could and I love them forever. So no unconditional love, no shortage of unconditional love, and the best we could, right? That's the only thing. But anyway, okay, so about the Latino Donor Collaborative, it's great. I love this. This is very Latino. So about 10 years ago, in 2010, actually 10 years ago, a group of Latino business leaders got together and said, why are people thinking that Latinos are such and such and such and such horrible things, when the truth is we know it's not true? We realized that there was a misinformation. The stereotyping was based on lack of data, of real data. And so we decided to get together and fund and work on this creation of original data with, of course, we are not researchers and all of us have a job, but to work with the top researchers in the country to create real data. And we started realizing with information from Stanford, from Columbia University, from UCLA, from Cal Lutheran, from Notre Dame, from all these different partners that we partnered with, that Latinos actually are, as I said, one of the numbers of the names or numbers that I just talked to you about before. Latinas are the most important entrepreneurs in the country, more than any other cohort, more than white men. I mean, this is Stanford School of Business. It's not LDC only saying it. We pay for the report, but they say it. So imagine that. Latinos buy 53% of all the new homes, when we are 18% of the population. And unfortunately, and given the big wave of immigration, socioeconomic wise, immigrants, actually not Latinos, but in general, immigrants don't have the best socioeconomic situation. We still buy 56% of the houses, of the new homes, right? Latinos are, we have the lowest percentage of homeless. We have a lot of different numbers that really started creating this. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know Latinos had one of the lowest criminality. Did you know that? No, we didn't. But you know what? Brookings Institute is saying that, right? Brookings Institution. Or we didn't know that Latinos were really 3 times more productive than other communities. Oh, I don't know, but Peterson Institution says it. It's amazing, right? So no, we're not lazy. No, we're not here to, suck the system. We're not here to do all these things. We're actually here creating growth. We're driving the growth through recessions, through crisis. We're driving growth. So this is why the Latino Donor Collaborative is here. And this is why we distribute our information for free, because we want business leaders, resource allocators, political leaders. We want everybody to use this information so they can plan. You are not making the right business decisions if you think that a community that is 1 out of 5 Americans is not worth it, or it's invisible, or it's only the drug dealer that you see on TV. You can't plan accordingly. What I'm telling you, big companies know. So Procter and Gamble and, you know, and Sony Pictures and some of those companies know this, and they work really hard to cater to our community. But the average American, unfortunately, doesn't know it. And that's why the Latino Donor Collaborative exists.
Thank you for spreading facts, and thank you for dispelling myths, and thank you for sharing truth and data. I think we all really appreciate that. And so you're speaking now to the power of the Latina's purse. And right now we're going through an economic crisis and a physical healthcare crisis. It's a pandemic. These are times that we've never seen before. And we're just this week alone, we learned 36,000 Latinos have died because of COVID-19. And some of the small businesses that have been shuttered because of quarantine have really impacted the Latino community and the Latina community. We now know a few months in that Latinas are being hit the hardest. Can you tell us a little bit more about what Latino Donor Collaborative has found and learned about the impact of coronavirus and the economic situation on the Latina community?
Absolutely. So you're right. Latinos have been terribly affected by the crisis, not only health-wise, but economic-wise, and students, right? I mean, we have the youngest cohort in America. So our students have been affected. We come to this crisis with a trend that is extremely positive. 92%, only 92% of Latino kids finish high school, which is an amazing number. 69% of them enroll in college, which is an amazing number. So we came with a trend of education focus, and now we face this. Public schools are completely limited. Some of them are opening, some are not. It's completely disorganized. So we've been affected terribly. And you're right, there's been a lot of deaths. Why? Well, Latinos from the very beginning stepped up and kept us safe. The reason why we could be at home, I am so lucky I can work from home. My husband can work from home. My kids are, you know, in their college dorms, all protected. The reason is that Latinos are picking the crops, are transporting the crops to the store, are packing it. They are managing the supermarket. Latinos are fixing the roads. They are fixing the antennas and the satellites that are out there allowing us to do the Zoom. So we were a super, super big part of the essential workers that kept us safe. Therefore, they got infected. And that was horrible. And guess what? They are still being affected. Because even though we're hopefully developing some immunity, and of course the antibodies that the scientists talk about and everything, they're still going out. Actually, after being sick, they're still going out. And this is a study that we're actually releasing in October. It's called At the Forefront of Coronavirus. And what we're finding, we actually were going to release it in August. And what we found is that the most recent information from the Department of Labor for August said that Latinos were reincorporated into the workforce. So we decided to postpone it to October to actually see those numbers, because they're still stepping up. They're still getting back and helping us to stay here. Latinas, the business that you are mentioning, Sonia, businesses. Another one of the greatest numbers is that they're also finding out that when businesses are closing, there are others that are opening. They suffer tremendously. I don't know if you read, but only 6% of the businesses in the Latino community that applied for the PPP got it. So they didn't even get the breaks. But still, they're reopening, they're finding new ways of opening their businesses, they're reinventing themselves. People that actually are, know a trade, they're adapting their trade to work in different environments and in different places. We are going to see, according to our economists, we're going to see that in this crisis, yet again, the same as after the economic crisis and after the downfall of 2008, Latinos will drive the recovery, and they will drive the the taking us out of this mess. I'm not saying that Latinos are perfect, and I'm not saying that only Latinos are going to do. But what I'm saying is that as a force, with the work ethic, with the stepping up mentality, with the optimist, with the youth, all those variables are helping us to be that community.
And some of those essential workers, right? The Latino community, they are contractors, they're in construction, they're continuing to build the homes that people are buying, the hospitals that are sick are going into, the community centers, the schools, right? There's so many different ways. We are on the front lines in terms of nursing and healthcare and doctors. There's a lot of Latinos in nursing. And I'm just going to share, I'm down in the Rio Grande Valley right now, where my mom is from and where my family is from. She's one of 10 siblings, and I have a lot of cousins down here. And it's one of the communities that's been hit the hardest right now, between the economy, to deaths, and then also to the migrant worker population. And I would like to just talk a little bit about the migrant worker population. And if you could share and help us let everybody else know what that really means. What is a migrant worker, and what does a migrant worker mean for the United States?
Absolutely. So it's so interesting because people are talking about Latinos taking the jobs of Americans. According to the Department of Labor, before the coronavirus, there were 7 million jobs not filled in the United States because there were not enough people. The reason why, as you can remember, the number of employed people was so high was not really because there were a lot of new businesses, but because there were not enough people filling up the job. So unemployment can be seen as, oh, we're doing so well because unemployment is so low. But it can also be seen, which was the case, and unemployment is so low because there's not enough people to fill up the jobs. That's how important migrant workers are. And we're talking with migrant workers about agriculture, but it's the same in meat packing, in truck driving, and then, as you were saying, going further, cleaning of hospitals, but wait, caregivers, nurses, doctors. In the case of engineers, you know that the country where engineers are more imported from, they sound like, merchandise, but the country where engineers come from the most is from Mexico. People don't know that. They think India, they think China, right? But it's Mexico. Mexico has a tremendous population of engineers because there are a lot of engineer schools. So so the United States has almost the same engineers graduating every year compared to Mexico, but Mexico is a third of population of the United States. So I'm saying this 7 million jobs not being fulfilled because even before the crisis, there were 7 million jobs. People say, why do we have immigrants? We have immigrants because we need them. Because the United States has a much older population, as all first world countries. 300,000 baby boomers are retiring every month in America. Who's going to fill that? Not only who's going to fill those jobs, but also who's going to continue supporting those baby boomers with taxes for their retirement, for their welfare, for all this, right? So migrant workers, the same as all immigrants, are extremely important. And migrant workers are actually, I think, there's no words to describe them. The level of hard work, the lack of retribution that is fair, the level of sacrifice as families, some of them going from one, field to the next one, different states, different times. The way, I don't know if you remember Tom Flores. He used to be one of the greatest coaches of the NFL, and I love him. He's a wonderful man that is now probably 80. But he always tells a story that the way he learned he was actually the quarterback first, and then he was a professional quarterback, of course. And then he was one of the biggest coaches of the NFL. And he says the way he learned how to play football was after going, you know, from town to town with his parents, you know, him working at 8 and 9 and 10, he used to connect with each one of those communities through football. So he used to go to the white, you know, school and say, hey, I'm 12, I want to play football. And he was very tall and very, 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 very big. And that's how he connected. And, you know, the fact that you have an NFL, you know, star coach coming from that kind of life, I mean, you can tell what kind of parents, what kind of community that was. So sorry, I just get excited about migrant workers because they're extremely important.
I get excited too. My mom and her siblings, my tios, my tias, they were migrant workers. And I grew up hearing that they would go to Michigan and some would have to go to California, some Florida, some stayed here in Texas and picked cotton. And I can imagine that started when they were children, and being separated from your siblings to provide and support and to go through the horrendous circumstances that migrant workers go through, and the way they're treated as second-class citizens, even though they're providing so much to the entire country and for the entire country, to process food, to get it to all the different states, right? So that everyone has groceries. And I think to some of that too, and that extent, can you share a little bit about some of those issues we're not talking about and we're not hearing about when it comes to COVID and migrant worker communities and the health of our Latino communities that are migrant workers and how that can actually impact the rest of us?
Absolutely. So I collaborate, as you said, with the Dolores Huerta Foundation sometimes. And of course, I am, you know, a huge fan of Dolores. She heard that her foundation, she's amazing, she's really incredible. Her foundation's, contrary to what people believe, is not, her foundation is not only focused on farm workers, even though she came from the farm worker movement. But what she does is actually, they concentrate on supplying services to the families of farm workers. So they've gone beyond, so they help with, you know, schooling and with, you know, health care, and they help with organizing. One of the things that she does the best is she teaches migrant workers to get organized and to demand what they deserve and to ask from the city, from the state, from the community, you know, to help. And they have been sharing a little bit of what they've seen, and it's devastating. I mean, people, as you can imagine, migrant workers don't have a great health care. They sometimes don't have any health care. Half of them are undocumented. They have been suffering, you know, they're obviously they live in multi-generational and, you know, very crowded, you know, not even apartments sometimes. Sometimes it's, you know, a trailer truck or, you know, different places. When one gets infected, unfortunately, the whole household gets infected. Older parents live with them, and so they are extremely vulnerable. And this is a phenomenon that happens with immigrant workers, and it also happened in New York. That was one of the reasons why New York has such high numbers. It happened in Queens, right? With all these Latinos and African Americans living together. And so so again, lots of suffering, lots of work, lots of stepping up for each other, not only within the family, but also within the community. We're lucky, you know, the Dolores Huerta Foundation is based in California, and it mostly works in California. We're lucky that the government of California has really stepped up in a lot of different ways. The foundation actually channels, you know, the help that comes and helps access the help that is there for them. But there's a lot of suffering, and especially older people that have to come out to work. Even if they feel they may be infected, if there are no tests immediately, they still have to go to work, because you find sometimes that, you know, the younger people are now responsible for, you know, for the household financially, sometimes even, you know, in other ways. So it's been a really challenging time. It's been, as always, you know, there are silver linings about unity. One of the things that they share is how education focus for children is still at the top of the priorities. You know, you find parents that may not be able to spend much money on feeding their children, and they do the most basic, but they won't let them not connect to their classes. They won't let them not to go to school if the school is open. You know, Kids are, kids that are in college with scholarship, they're coming back and using their money to help the household and continuing online, college. So it's this extraordinary group of people. I work with media and I constantly tell them, you really are missing so much by not telling our stories. Our stories would dazzle, literally dazzle, not only Latinos, all populations. And not only in the United States, in the world. And we know that it does, we know that the #1 social media influencers are always Latinos, but there's stories of people like migrant workers, the unsung hero. Those stories would kill. I don't know about you, but I'm so tired of the same old, and the rerun of I don't know what, and the redo of I don't know what, and it's like shows from the 80s that are not current, but they still are doing them over and over again. These are the real stories that people want to hear. These are the inspirational, narratives that our kids want to know about. This is what makes American proud. We always say that Latinos are really the natural, one of the many, but, a natural American dream, And so anyway, all this just to share some of the stories that I know, which is in California, of how migrant workers are still stepping up. Why do you and I can go to the store and there's still the mangoes and there's still the aguacates? And, I haven't seen any shortage of anything except paper, the toilet paper. But other than that, I haven't seen any shortage.
No, I completely agree with you. And understanding how much Latinos contribute, one, to the workforce, and two, then to the economic growth. Now hearing more about some of the statistics and the data you have. What are some of the trends that you see over the next couple of years when it comes to Latinas in the workforce?
I think that this entrepreneurship spirit and power and motivation will continue and will increase. Sometimes we Latinas, when we see need, we step up even more. So I think that this trend will continue, and if anybody in this country is smart enough, they should capitalize on it, because Latinas will continue founding businesses and growing them. I do believe that Latina girls are empowered to the core. They're taking all these new programs that are meant for girls, and they are taking them as their own. They are getting educated. We can see Latinas excelling in grades. We can see Latinas graduating. Unfortunately, more than Latinos. Hopefully, that will catch up. But you asked about Latinas, so that's the number that I'm saying. I also feel a lot of integration. Remember that the last big wave of immigration finished in 1990. There were still Latinos coming to the United States all the way up to 2008. Starting 2008, immigration has been negative. There are more people going back than coming into the United States. But the immigration big wave finished in 1990. So people that came here with no education, that worked really hard to give education to their kids, are seeing right now their kids entering the workforce at a complete different level. And this is what's happening right now. Our numbers are so hopeful because we haven't even seen the whole, workforce that will be coming from the Latino community. The average age, all the numbers that I'm telling you are the census. The average age for a Latino is 28 years old. The average age for a non-Latino in America is 42. So that tells you how young our population is. And that tells you how much more is coming to the workforce. One of the things that is really interesting from Latinos is that we intermarry a lot. So I see a big wave of Latinas marrying outside the community, but interesting enough, bringing the in-laws inside the Latino traditions. And this is documented by studies, but it's also my own experience. And I don't even have to ask you, that probably is your, Yvonne and Sonia's experience too. We intermarry, but we expand our culture. It's not that we intermarry and we forgot about tamales in Navidad. On the contrary, our husbands have to eat tamales in Navidad. That's it.
Yes, we can't. No podemos. We can't forget. No, you are absolutely right. We try to share our culture and we try to give it to others, and we try to get others to also appreciate it. You're absolutely correct. ¿Cómo podemos apoyar? How can we help the Latino and Hispanic community and support such a vulnerable population right now? Like, what can we be doing?
Well, I think there are many ways. One is to change your state of mind. I think that's the most important part. I think that if we, all Americans, realize everything that we're getting from the Latino community, specifically Latinas, at all levels. In LA, I want to say nannies, but some people don't like that term, but people that are helping raise kids of working women are 90% Latinas. And these women raise amazing kids, and these kids fall madly in love with their nannies. But still, that professional woman sometimes goes back to, the corporation she works with or the studio, and she doesn't remember that that's a representative of the Latino community. And she still believes that Latinos are all, gang members and drug dealers. Think about the Latinos around you. They are not unique. They are the Latino community. The people that you trust, your kids, your house, your yard, your car, and your food to, are actually Latinos, good Latinos. That's why you trust them with the most precious things. So change that state of mind. Think about the community, the Latino community, as those people that you love and appreciate so much. That's the first one. And the second one is help with, donating to migrant workers organizations, help people at the border, include in your staff Latinos, open your mind and say, this person may not speak well English. You know what? They may dazzle with all the things that they can do for you because they're more international, they're bilingual, and they have lived in different countries. That actually in any other country in the world, that's an advantage. Here, you see it as a negative. In every other country in the world, somebody that is bilingual and has lived in different countries is actually more valuable than somebody that hasn't. So there's so many ways in which you can expand your own realm of your own reality into, including people. And third, don't be scared of interacting directly with people that may look different, that may sound different, and that may have some different ideas. This is what life is. The globalization of the world is never going back, never going back. So the more current you are, the more global you are, the more current you are. So I would say those three are probably my main ones right now.
I think those are really important ones. And I thank you so much again for joining us. We have a couple more questions from our community that I want to ask too. I could talk to you all day. The first time we connected, we just kept going on and on and on and on and on. And I know with Yvonne and Angie that we could sit here and do this all day. But to keep everyone on schedule, let me get into some of our community questions. This is a good one. What are some of the authentic ways we can show up for Latino and Latina co-workers? So you've kind of given us those three core ways we can show up for the larger Latino community, but how do we show up for our co-workers?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And I love that somebody did it because they obviously mean very well. And thank you for making that question. I think if you asked me if I was coming into a corporation or any kind of environment, work environment, I would say, open your mind. I may look different and may sound different, but I have a lot to give. So open your mind, not by saying, oh, I have a Latino friend, or my girlfriend had a boyfriend in college that was Latino, or no. I mean, just think about me as a person. Think about me as somebody that obviously is valuable because I was hired. So, I am valuable, and open up your mind. I love being on boards, and it's a lot of work, but I love being on boards. And I always tell them when they talk about diversity, I said, sometimes people want diversity that looks, acts, and talks like them. So don't hire the Latina that looks very comfortable for you. Hire the Latina that makes you be out of your comfort zone, but that may give you so much. It's just venture out of your comfort zone. I think that would probably be be honest, be authentic. You know, I think that's one of the things that I can recommend.
I think one of the really good ways to kind of sum that up is don't just count your diversity, don't just count your numbers. Make your diverse team and your coworkers count. Make them count as people, right?
Exactly. Make them count as people, exactly.
If anyone else has questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We've got one more right now. ¿Qué es el mensaje que quiere pasamos hoy? What is the message you want to pass on to us today and you want us to walk away with today?
I think the message is our country is 18% Latino, 13% African American, 6 point something Asian. It's never going back to a monolithic, monochromatic country. The fastest you get yourself comfortable into that data, because I'm not predicting anything, it's the data today, the better you'll be able to plan for your own, you know, bottom line, for your own goals, and for your own enrichment. You know, we are actually, it's lucky. It's a blessing to be able to live in a multicultural society. And it is a reality. That's the most important part. We call it the new mainstream America. The more you push yourself to get out of your comfort zone and live in that reality, the easier it'll be for you and for the country in the end, and for other people, you know, that don't look or talk like you. I think that would be my most important message, something that I would like people to stay with, because that automatically allows for people to treat people with diverse backgrounds better, to include them, and to kind of enjoy them.
Thank you. And then just one last question, since you mentioned, you know, get out of some of those old show redos, learn more about culture and the Latino heritage. Any shows or movies you recommend for our audience?
Yes, that's a great question. I love it. So I do love All Rise. I don't know if you've seen All Rise in CBS. It's about a trio. It's an African-American judge, a Latina defender, and a white male prosecutor. And the three of them have a lot of fun. And it's really smart. It's really cute. I don't know if you like, kind of like, you know, I'm a nerd. So again, that's a nerdy show, but I like that. Bull is fun. It's very funny. And there's also, Freddie Rodriguez is a great lawyer in the show. There's also fun things like Magnum PI. Station 19 is really good too. There's one that I feel a little embarrassed to say that I really adore, which is Mayan CMC. It's a little crazy. I don't like bikers, but it is well done. It's really, really well done. There's a cute girls. There are two very cute shows right now. One is called The Adventures of Ashley Garcia. It is really cute. It's about a genius girl, Ashley Garcia, that tries to live a regular life in high school. It's really, really cute. It's on Netflix. And then there's another one that is called The Diary of a Future President. It's a Latina girl also that is going to be a future, you know, president, and how she grows up. So those two are really cute for girls. I recommend them strongly.
As an attorney, I definitely want to watch the first few you recommended, some of those law shows. Yes, I definitely want to watch some of those. And let me see, I'm not seeing any other questions in our chat. Yvonne, any questions you had as a follow-up or anything else you wanted us to speak to or share?
Oh, definitely. This was so inspiring, right? Like it's so great to hear the stories, and obviously different generations, right? Like it's amazing to know like the hard work that we do and what's to come, right? Like we're not going anywhere.
Exactly. And expect good things. I think that's bottom line message.
Okay, Ana, thank you so much for joining us. We are so grateful for all the time you gave us today, for all the time you took to prep too over the last few weeks with us and to your team. We are so grateful. I cannot express how much we are just that you came and you helped us like share more about our community, our culture, Latinas, and what's going on right now, so we have more awareness around it and we can be more conscientious. Mil gracias. Que le vaya bien.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Gracias a ustedes. Thanks for the work that you guys are doing. Really, honestly, it's needed. Latinas will become and are already a very important part of moms working. So I'm glad you're bringing them in. The organization, thanks for doing things for moms that are working. We desperately need it. And thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for everyone who joined us too. We really appreciate you coming in and sharing, and we will share this as well for anyone who missed it. Thank you all so much.